This poem is called Nightmare on East Avenue. Turning, snatching at images, catching, uncatching my breath, watching the damage of hatches, imagining, gurning. It furrowed that I had been followed, through hollow and fallow, by all of my morals and vices, disguised as a shadow, a fellow whose eyes, as they burned in the blackness, desired my death. At first the force of reason, ration, quenched the thirst of terror. I was fierce enough to face him, he was far enough behind. And though his eyes were beaming closer, still I seemed to know the forest, for I grew and learnt my trade within these branches and their shade, and so could cope with any horror they contained. But as the stranger on my heel came into sight and was revealed, my zeal dissembled, strength surrendered, blind, disturbing fright congealed. For he was greater than the sum of all my parts, his gait was faster, and his arms concealed a weapon primed and sighted to annihilate my world. So the dilemma that defined my life unfurled at once and billowed as a sail that catches wind propels the vessel. My assailant, his committal to my vertical interment, with the tools at my disposal on his person, and the hope that kept me going ebbed and faded as the glade that I inhabited increasingly was bathed in the destruction of his gaze, and my existence seemed to shiver. If this mind of mine has any worth, I valued, it must find the answer now, or else the safety of the blink will be outmuscled by the stare. Just think, I urged my brain, you useless organ. Search your contents for the means of my defence, before this foe, this violent opponent, finds his moment. What's your weapon? Where's your purpose? Then, quite happily and quietly, it happened. Hope emerged again. I turned to face my demon and confronted him. He faltered in his tracks, his imminent attack insulted by my fortitude. His jaw gaped and a noise escaped that sounded like a question, so I answered with the truth, or what I thought the truth to be. I told it all from start to finish, the sum total of my learnings, how to boil an egg or poach one, where to get the fastest coach from, why the Pope lives in the Vatican, the plays of Terence Rattigan, the pleasures of an orgy, the destruction... The pleasures of an orgy, the destruction... Right. Sorry, I got 5 minutes, it's fine. The pleasures of an orgy, the destruction of the clergy by the forces of the secular authorities, and why, and how we chance to be conceived, grow up and die, without a stick to guide or carrot to incline us, but the ones that people find within the darkness at the edge of their perception. How except in special circumstances, no one takes the chances they are given, why we each have different profits, why we bother, why we suffer. Pause for breath. The air was silent. My assailant was considering my offer. Then, quite suddenly, he screamed a most incongruous expression, dropped his weapon, cried for mercy, then disintegrated suddenly, so suddenly the mud beneath his feet completely dried as though great heat was shed by his demise. So, I survived. And yet the bliss of my relief was short and ugly, since the woods I thought I recognised were somewhere else entirely. And although my life was spared, the bitter strife that it conferred would be my master and my slave until the day my mind expired. And I was ashed upon a pyre, or tossed aside into a grave, and every night until that day would dream the same disarming game. Put a bit down for this one. Okay, this is called Trafalgar. Will they ever put me on a plinth in a square to mark my most famous victory? No. I'd have to lose not just an arm, but an eye, and eventually die, which is something I plan not to do. Besides, the most that I ever won was the hurdles, and that by default. Since the athlete who raced out in front tested red for all sorts. A shock to us all. We were children, of course, as was everyone once. The cheat was expelled in the end, and good riddance to him. We were not on great terms. And he made it his personal aim to destroy my athletic career, since he thought I was solely to blame for the scandal that got him kicked out. The truth hovers over. I never ran again. But it might as well have been choice. I took no comfort competing at school, and it wasn't the cold or the noise, but the fact that I always lost out in the end. Be it rugby or girls or cards, it was always too hard to be sure if a fellow you thought was your friend would remain so and keep, independent of damage you might one day do. No, there never will be a statue of me. I'd look garish in bronze. And the problem remains. Where would I even make my mark? This is no world for heroes now. And as far as my knowledge of England allows, there are no more squares to be named.
Woo!
That was James P Mannion.